The Miami Heat have lost 3 straight for the first time all season. Have teams figured out Miami's offense?
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Join the Cookie Gang, become an everydayer. That means subscribing, tuning in every day, Monday through Friday, and signing up to the Locked On Heat text line with the link to our subtext in the show notes. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com. Place your NFL live bets all season long. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real GM Radio and credentialed Heat Media member. This is my co-host David Ramil's last day of vacation. So again, going solo today, this Sunday morning after the Heat's blowout loss to the Sacramento Kings last night. The Heat have now lost 3 straight games for the first time all season, and last night was ugly. Woo! That was not a fun way to spend your Saturday night if you're a Heat fan. A loss to the Sacramento Kings, who had lost 12 of 14 games coming into this one. They're one of the saddest franchises in the league. Domantas Sabonis is hurt for them. They're being forced to play Russell Westbrook a bunch of minutes at this stage of his career, and it was ugly, man. Like that is a bad loss. Second night of a back-to-back. You're in Orlando on Friday night, and then you have to come back. Second night of a back-to-back less than 24 hours later and start a game against the Sacramento Kings. The Heat, no Powell. I'm sorry, no Tyler Herro, no Davion Mitchell, no Pelle Larsson in that game. But still, I mean, it's the Kings. That's a bad loss. That's a bad loss. They had no answer for Zach LaVine. 42 points, 50% shooting, made 8 3-pointers in that game. Just time after time, they were just making shots. You really felt the loss of the absence of Davion Mitchell when it came to LaVine. Nobody to fight over those screens. What Mitchell is so good at is keeping that body contact going over those screens. And as soon as LaVine had a sliver of space, I mean, he was pulling up and he was making those shots. So you really felt Mitchell's absence in that game. But look, it's Miami's 3rd straight loss this season. It's the first time all year that they've lost 3 straight games. And I'm being asked a lot, have teams started to figure out this Heat offense? And Sacramento did a good job slowing down Miami's offense. They played at a pace of 100.5 possessions per 48 minutes in that game. That was Miami's 3rd slowest game of the season last night. And you look over these last 3 games, they've been held to 111 or less points or fewer points in each of these last 3 games, all 3 losses. So they're not playing as fast, and they're not getting up as many points. And that's sort of Miami's whole thing this season. So when that's not happening, you've got a problem. And you've got 3 straight losses, which is what we're seeing here. Now, if you look at Miami's overall pace for the year, they're averaging just over 105 possessions per 48 minutes this season. Still number 1 in the pace. I checked again this morning to see if they had dropped. Nope. They're still number 1 in pace by about a full possession per game over the Chicago Bulls, who are 2nd place. That said, they have been held to 102 or fewer possessions in each of those last 3 games. And those are 3 of Miami's 7 slowest games this season. So they are starting to get slowed down. Which is why people are asking, have teams figured out this Heat offense? And there are times where it does look like they've figured it out. Teams are doing a better job packing the paint. They're doing a better job getting back in transition off of live rebounds, off of turnovers, and just generally not... I think Miami caught a lot of teams by surprise early in the season by just running off of makes, right? And teams are they're scouting it. They're more prepared. They're getting back faster and more effectively. So there is that's definitely part of it. Teams are more prepared for what it is that the Heat want to throw at them. That said, I think there's more context that matters here. The Heat have also shot less than 30% from 3 in 2 of these 3 losses, against Dallas and against Sacramento last night. And the only game where they shot well, in Orlando on Friday night, that was a possession game. They had a chance to win it, took a late 4th quarter push, but they had a chance to win it late And a Bam Adebayo, Norm Powell, they botched the last possession. Bam was supposed to ISO. Powell comes over and brings his guy over. That packed things for Bam. And Bam had to chuck a three-point heave at the end of the clock, which never had a chance of going in. Everybody kind of owned up to it and the lack of communication at the end of that game. So who knows if they execute better? That has nothing to do with pace or figuring out Miami's offense. That's just a lack of execution. So who knows if they execute better on that last play? Maybe they win in Orlando. And we're not talking about a 3-game losing streak, right? In that game, by the way, you were playing without Tyler Herro. And so the game where you did shoot pretty decently from 3, that was anybody's game. And you lose in Orlando to a good Magic team and a healthy Magic team that was bringing back Paolo Banchero. That's not a bad loss. Despite the fact that you had to fight back in that game, it's not a bad loss. That's a good basketball team. And then you lose to Dallas and Sacramento. Dallas, that's a good defense, and they're playing well lately. And Sacramento, it's a bad loss, which I already said, but you shoot worse than 30% in those 2 games. Meanwhile, those teams are shooting really well. Sacramento made 42% of their threes. Dallas made 50% of their threes in those games. So you're not shooting well. They are shooting well. And one of the things I talked about, I think it was in our Thanksgiving special, was I wonder when this starts to flip, because Miami had been shooting so well from 3-point range, and the Heat's defense was also enjoying the lowest shooting percentage by opponents in the league. They were number 1 in opponent 3-point shooting percentage, rather. And some of that is just good defense. Some of that is obviously make or miss stuff. And I said, look, teams aren't going to be shooting 32% against the Heat from 3-point range all season long. That's going to flip at some point, and when it does, I'm interested to see how they respond. Now, unfortunately for Miami, those games where the other team was starting to shoot well from 3, they weren't. And that's why you have a losing streak right now. But it's also worth bringing up, right? Injuries have also played a factor here. Norm Powell missed the Dallas game. Tyler Herro missed Orlando and Sacramento. Those are 2 of your better 3-point shooters. Davion Mitchell missed that game in Sacramento. I just said how they missed him defensively. They also missed him offensively. I thought that game against the Kings, they really missed those hit-ahead passes and those fastballs from Davion. They didn't have that. They didn't have that extra downhill gear that Davion brings to that starting lineup. So I think part of this is defenses keying in on the right things defensively against this Heat offense, getting back in transition, being prepared for that stuff, especially off of makes. Miami got a lot of low-hanging fruit early in the year off of makes. Even just bringing the ball in bounds, just kicking it ahead, getting up the court really fast, and defenses just being not prepared for that. So that's part of it, but I think a really big part of it is just the shooting splits here and the injuries. So I don't know that teams have figured out Miami's offense, but I do think that they're better prepared for Miami's offense. And that means that Erik Spoelstra and the Heat have to make some slight adjustments. I don't think there needs to be an overhaul. I don't think it's an indictment on the offense that it doesn't work. This team is still number 1 in pace. They're still 13th or 14th in offensive rating as of this morning. There's room to improve. You're dealing with some injuries, some bad shooting luck. That was bound to happen. But you know what that means, right? That'll flip back the other way at some point. At some point, all of this levels out, where you start to shoot a little bit better, and opponents don't shoot 42 and 50% from 3 against you. And even the Magic, by the way, shot above their season average at 35+% from 3 in that game. So the shooting stuff will even out. But I do think that there are adjustments that the Heat have to make. So we diagnosed the problems here. How can the Heat fix it? We'll talk about that next year on Locked On Heat. Today's episode of Locked On Heat is brought to you by Robinhood. Nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money, trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto, all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network. How can Miami fix this offense now that we've kind of gotten down to some of the problems here? One thing that gets brought up a lot is Miami's performance against zone. We saw this earlier in the year. The Lakers were one of the first teams to start playing zone against the Heat, and teams have started to copy that. And the reason why you play zone against this specific Heat offense, which is all about that wheel on offense, they're going to pass the ball around, drive and kick, try to get your guy in isolation, drive against that player, and if that doesn't work, kick and let somebody else try. And everybody's in constant motion trying to find those driving lanes. So the reason you play zone is zone specifically protects against the drive. The way to bust the zone is to make outside shots. But Miami wants to get to the rim first and then make outside shots second. And we've seen that with their three-point rate overall this season. They're not very high in three-point rate. They are near the top of the league in drives and points in the paint and points at the rim. So the way that you combat that is zone up, 2-3 zone, make sure that there's multiple guys between the guy with the basketball and the basket. So that's why you've seen a lot of teams play zone. It also protects against that wheel, right? Because you've got guys moving around the perimeter. When you're a zone, you're just sort of zoned up against it, right? You're not defending the man. You're sort of defending where the man wants to go. And so you're not constantly chasing players around. So if you're a defense, you're not in scramble basically from the first second of the shot clock. You're just sort of zoning up, waiting for them to make their move. You're anticipating when you're in that zone. So that's why you see these teams play zone. And it's been a talking point here. Hey, has the zone slowed you down a little bit? And the players and coaches all say, yeah, you know what? The zone, like, we're still adjusting to it a little bit, but we'll figure it out and all these things. But look, the numbers actually say the Heat were playing better against the zone than they are man defense. According to Synergy, the Heat are averaging 1.04 points per possession against zone, as opposed to 1.02 points per possession against man. The Heat have actually been better against zone than they have man defense. That's interesting. The problem for this Heat offense, strangely enough, and you won't even believe it when I tell you, the problem is they don't score well in transition. You say, what? That's the whole thing. What are you talking about? I've seen this team play up tempo. This team is best when they're in transition. It is. They are best when they're in transition. The Heat are a volume team now. They are not an efficient team. They get out in transition and they score points because they do it a lot. They are in the 97th percentile in transition opportunities this season. That means they are near the top of the league in getting out on the break, in transition, off live rebounds, off steals, off turnovers, whatever it might be. They are in the 97th percentile, near the top of the league in just getting those opportunities, creating them, and getting out. However, they're in the 20th percentile, near the bottom of the league, in scoring on those opportunities on a per opportunity basis. The Miami Heat are the Walmart of transition. They are about volume, not necessarily bang for your buck. They need to be more efficient in those transition shots. And now that I tell you this, you're probably thinking, you know what? There are a ton of missed layups in transition. You've noticed them recently, haven't you? Think about it. This team is missing a bunch of shots in transition. And you look at the numbers, specifically guys like Andrew Wiggins, and believe it or not, Jaime Jaquez Jr. need to be more efficient. They get out on the break a lot. They're among Miami's best guys in creating these opportunities, so they get credit for that. They need to finish better. Some of this also is, like I said before, teams getting back in transition. Though some of those layups have now become, 5 feet sort of push shots or floaters or Bam Adebayo hook shots or something like that. Teams are starting to get back and take away some of the easier looks. But that said, like the wide open layups for Wiggins and Jaime are now turning into one-on-ones or two-on-ones or something like that. And it's just a little bit more difficult. But they got to be better in those opportunities anyway. You kind of drill down the numbers too. The Heat aren't better. I wondered, are the Heat better off of rebounds? Are they better off of steals? No. Not really. They're 23rd in their efficiency in points off of steals, 25th in points off in efficiency off of rebounds. So whether or not they're running off of a rebound or running off of a steal, they need to be better. They need to be better. In terms of how to fix this, when Miami does get slowed down, or, I think also the three-point shooting part of this, when your opponent is making a ton of threes, you're not getting as many opportunities. That's why I go back to the first segment where I was talking about these are 3 of the slower games they've played all season. That's why. Because you have teams shooting above their head from three-point range. Now you're taking the ball out of your own basket a lot. You're going to get slowed down. So all of this stuff, it's all of these things, right? It's not one thing that has bugged the Heat these last 3 games. It's all of these things combined. But in terms of how they can fix it, they need to get better at actually scoring on a per-possession basis in transition. What does that mean? It means just, first of all, being more efficient, getting to the basket a little bit more, maybe playing a little, it sounds crazy, playing even more up-tempo in those transitions. Just, you've been playing really fast. It might be time to somehow play faster. More hit-ahead passes, right? I think also part of this is if teams are going to run back and protect against the rim, those three-point looks from the corner as other guys run the wing, or that trailer 3 from Bam or for Kel'el, it might be time to start looking for that a little bit more. Miami, like I said, wants to get to the rim first and foremost, kick out second. It might be time to be a little bit more willing to kick out. And for this coaching staff to instruct the team, hey, all right, we're going to have the guy on the break get to the rim, and oftentimes we have somebody else also trying to get to the rim on that cut. Maybe instead of cutting against that defense that's doing a better job getting back and protecting the paint, maybe instead of cutting to the rim, now we start flanking out to the corners. We start flaring out to the three-point line. Just to loosen up these defenses in transition a little bit more. The other thing we are already seeing from this Heat team, they ran more pick and roll last night against the Sacramento Kings than they have basically all season. The Heat averaged just over 7 pick and roll attacks per game, and oftentimes it feels like incidental when it does happen. It almost feels like an accident that Bam just sort of runs into a screen for Norm Powell, and then Powell comes off of it, and that counts as a pick and roll. And we have seen the Heat lately dabble in more pick and roll. There was a game the other day where the first play of the game was a called set that got Wiggins and Bam into a pick and roll. So Spo is starting to sprinkle some of these pick and rolls in a little bit more, and that is strategic, right? It's just to keep the defense off just a little bit, right? Hey, make them respect the pick and roll, but also make it known that, hey, it's not that we're not running a lot, but it's not that we're running none. So you got to be prepared for this a little bit, and that means, hey, you got to maybe, that helps balance things out a little bit. But against the Kings on a night where the offense just did not have it going, Spo basically played the bench the entire fourth quarter. The Heat ran 12 pick and rolls last night against the Kings, which is still by far, would rank by far the fewest in the league on a per game basis, but it's almost double what Miami usually runs. And I made a note of it while I was watching the game, and I wanted to make sure that when the stats updated this morning that I took a look at it. Yep, per synergy, 12 pick and rolls per game, 12 pick and rolls last night against Sacramento versus 7.2 per game all season. And I do wonder if that's maybe the next thing on this offense. It's not going to be all transition and trying to do this. Erik Spoelstra said this after the game last night. We got to figure out how to win different kinds of games. Sometimes that's going to involve using more pick and roll. And that's what I would tell people about Tyler Herro. Oh, Tyler Herro, how's he going to fit into this offense when he comes back and all these things? I said, hey, first of all, I think he's going to fit great in this offense. A lot of pull-up threes and all these things. And by the way, he hasn't scored fewer than 20 points in a game since he got back. And the pace thing, I don't blame that on Tyler Herro. Like we just said, there's a lot of different reasons for this. But also, maybe they could use more pick and roll from Tyler Herro. Why not add another thing to the menu here? Why not help get Kel'el going offensively with some more pick and roll? Why not create more lob opportunities at the basket? It still accomplishes what you want to accomplish. Remember, the system isn't meant to accomplish the system. The system is meant to accomplish a goal. And the goal is we want to get more shots at the rim than we have over the last few years. Miami was way too mid-range dependent in the last few years. They figured out, how can we get to the rim? Well, if we just run faster and essentially just beat the defense to the basket, that's how we can do it. But if you're also able to create some of those opportunities at the rim via pick and roll, then you're going to do that. The goal of the system isn't to run the system. The goal of the system is to create the right opportunities. And whatever you can do to create those opportunities, that's what you're going to do if you're Erik Spoelstra on this coaching staff. I mentioned Tyler Herro. We got good news regarding Tyler Herro's injury. We're going to talk about that next. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the games start to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into that moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scorers, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com, place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, so can you. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Some positive news on the Tyler Herro injury front. He underwent an MRI on Saturday morning after missing the last two games with an injured big toe. The MRI revealed it was a contusion. So the Heat are calling it a right big toe contusion, which means it's not an issue that is expected to sideline Tyler Herro for an extended period of time. It's not structural. It's a bruise. Now the Heat have now labeled Tyler Herro day to day. He could be back as soon as Tuesday's game in Orlando, NBA Cup game with in the knockout stage. The first time the Heat have ever advanced to the knockout stage of the NBA Cup. Very exciting. It is again in Orlando. The Heat have not played the Magic at home yet this season. They played in Orlando opening night, in Orlando Friday night, and they'll be in Orlando again Tuesday night just because Orlando won the group. And Miami's was a wild card, so Miami comes in as a wild card. They have to play on the road of this knockout stage. But if they beat the Magic in this knockout stage, then they would advance to the next round. And that's obviously the goal here. So part of me is like, is it almost better that they lost Friday? This way you kind of get this one on Tuesday. The Magic are a good team. It's hard to beat them twice in a row at home. So maybe if you're going to win one of these games in Orlando, better the one on Tuesday and advance in the NBA Cup than the one on Friday. Knowing that that's not fully how it works, but still, that's the thought I had. The Heat have been 3-2 in the games that Tyler Herro has played this season. Now, by missing these two games, he has been already ruled ineligible for end-of-season awards, which means he's not going to qualify for a Supermax. Now, it was a long shot that he was going to qualify for the Supermax anyway. He would have had to make All-NBA this year, and that's a tough bar. But this officially rules him out. So in terms of Tyler Herro extension talks, you take the Supermax now officially off the table. The max is still on the table technically, right? He could still sign a max contract, which would be worth upwards of $50 million a year. I still don't see that happening. We don't have to do the whole Tyler Herro extension thing right now. But yeah, I don't know that Tyler Herro is going to necessarily be seeking the max. He'll take it, obviously, if it's offered. But I do think that there's a middle ground here for everybody to meet. But good news on Tyler Herro. He's expected to be day-to-day, should be back, could be potentially back, I should say, Tuesday night in Orlando. And we know, as we covered on today's episode, the Heat do need him. That'll do it for us today. We'll be back on Monday morning with a special guest. David Ramil should also be back. But this has been Locked On Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.